Now it's time for Viking Mail Call, a weekly show where you, the fans, get to ask the questions on your mind and have them answered by former Minnesota Vikings linebacker and coach, Pete Bercich. And now your host, Tom Moore.
As we move to the field where the football's really going on, guys, you know, it actually was a pretty impressive showing by the defense. Continues to get better, and Teddy Bridgewater brought the team back twice in the second half for go-ahead touchdowns. And Pete, I was wondering, what were your thoughts on the progress of this Viking team in the win versus Washington last Sunday?
I think the defense put together another very, very solid game. I think RG3 was very much on his game, really up until the end. And, the last pass on fourth down, I'm sure he wished he could have back. But when you pressure a guy all day long, guys like that are going to make those kinds of mistakes, or uncharacteristic mistakes, if you will. The way the game set up at the end, defense still, they came up with a big stop, which from a confidence standpoint is big. And we've talked about that earlier, just guys believing in each other. I mean, you're always going to have the guy that when you score a field goal says that's all the points that we need, and, give it lip service, and people kind of nod their head and ignore them. But now these guys, I think, as a group can really put something behind them saying we can win this game on defense. And that stuff, when you set a standard like that, it resonates in the room. Guys get more involved in game plan. Guys get more involved in everything. And I think you look at the way the D-line is playing. They're playing as a group. You've got four individuals playing as a group. Everson Griffin is playing very, very well. His effort right now is elite. I mean, the guy is going 100 miles an hour, and I just hope he understands that his effort level is one of the big reasons why he's being successful. We've seen guys have great years and then kind of fall off the shelf, if you will. That's what that is. It's effort. I mean, he's covering so much ground, and he's doing it in such a rapid pace. It's amazing. And I hope everybody else takes notice, too, in that room, which I'm sure they do, and what kind of effort level you have to put forth every single week. I don't care if it's 55 minutes into a game. You still have 5 minutes at the end where you really got to go out there and then really let it all hang out. That's crunch time. And when you're 8-10 games into a season and it's getting long and you've been out there already for 60 plays, I mean, that's the difference maker. And for them to do that, it was great. I think for the offense to come back a few times and put points on the board, get us back ahead, gives them confidence. I think the big talker was, Teddy and the accuracy of the deep balls and talking with some people. There's communication with the receiver too. So it's not necessarily all on the quarterback, so to speak, but those plays have to be made. And the bottom line is that, I'm looking back in my mind and I'm trying to remember, Mike, a veteran quarterback who was very, very good at throwing a deep ball, that learned how to do that struggled with it early in their career and then turned it around. The bottom line is they're going to have to keep doing it. They're going to have to keep letting Teddy throw that deep ball. They have to continue to keep stretching the field if they want him to get better. You can practice that stuff all week long, every day, all day, but it's not the same. The timing just isn't the same as it is in a game. And so you may have to just see some more of this before it gets better. And I hope that it does, because everything else in his game is fantastic. And you see him miss some easy throws and then make a real, real difficult throw to Greg Jennings for a touchdown. So I mean, the potential's there. So you've seen a guy miss some easy ones but make some hard ones. That's good. I mean, that's what you want to see. You know that it's there. You know that the potential's there. But he's going to have to continue to keep trying to throw the ball deep and get better at it. It's a very, very difficult thing. You might get 1 or 2 shots a game. Like I said, practice. You can practice it all day long. I don't know, maybe you work on some mechanical things. But, God, the deep ball, I remember Randall Cunningham, that's a talent that either kind of you have or you don't. It's like guys who take bad angles of the football and tackling. A lot of people have said that about Greenway in the past, and it's something that just you can't practice and fix because you can't replicate that speed and those angles in practice. You can't. And guys who take bad angles of tackles just will their whole entire career. It's a very hard thing to fix and to cure. And for Teddy, and I hope he can get it straightened out. But at some point he's going to need to. He's going to need to get that deep ball figured out because those opportunities like that don't come by very often. And if we would have lost that game because of it, what a shame. I mean, we had 25 yards of offense in the first quarter. We should have had 150. And you can't leave that stuff on the table.
A good point that you bring up is that you learn in hundreds of reps, is what I was always told when I was coming up and playing, is that everything from snapping a football up to the quarterback and taking the proper step. You can do that 100 times each way, and you have to get that feel down to something that is automatic pilot for you. And it is honed and in there before a game begins. But still, there's the game day speed. There's the game day adrenaline. There's the game day anxiousness to a rookie quarterback who, when you ask him and tell him you're confident enough in him to take the first snap of offense from the line of scrimmage and haul off and throw it deep to Greg Jennings, and we believe in you and we think you can do it. I love that they did that with him. I love that they took it on first down and threw the bomb the first play of the game, and he overthrew Jennings, and he came back and he completely overthrew Cordero Patterson. I kind of want to believe that when you do something like that, even a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, who completed 71% of his passes at Louisville his senior year, you're jacked up, you're nervous, you haven't had the experiences of game day in the NFL. When he can control his nerves and how he starts a football game, those balls will dial back into a receiver. He's a good football player. He's got a good arm for a slight build and stature. When that kid flings it, it comes out of there pretty hot. He can throw it in awfully long ways, and as well, and we saw that. I mean, he threw it over Jennings, and he threw it over the top of Cordero, who was running. He was streaking for it, and he overthrew it. There's plenty of arm there. So you're right. He has to learn by experience that the way you start a game and the way you throw that first long ball is going to take time. You have to settle yourself down to a point where you can throw the first one perfect. And that's what it takes. You don't get many shots, like Pete said. So I like his chances. I like this kid because he'll go over to the sidelines, and the first thing he'll do is he'll pick up an iPad. And he'll sit there with Scott Turner and say, what was that? Where is this? Where does it go? What should I have done? After a touchdown pass, he comes straight over, not a lot of celebrating, grabs an iPad and sits down with the coach, or right next to Ponder. And he's got a really even keel sort of way of looking at things, and he's always about, show me. Someone show me this, because I hate not knowing. You can just tell it. You can read his face. And he comes back then, and he lights the place up. And if the offensive line could just play, and like Pete said, effort is free. So have all you want. But the offensive line is not. They're not. I think the effort level is down. I think that Phil Little can do an awful lot more. He's in better shape this year, but I don't see him moving that way. Carl Eller talked with me on the radio, and he played over the right tackle all of his career. And he said, I don't think Load Holt gives much. That's a big statement from a Hall of Famer who played over a right tackle for 18 years. I don't know what Khalil do is yet, but just to reiterate what you were saying defensively, I think Jefferson Griffin is just amazing. Anthony Barr, we hit it rich there too. And they're playing discipline defense. I think after Green Bay, Zimmer said, you're going to play it my way or you're in trouble. And they've really come around since then.
I agree with you, Mike. I think that Phil's one of the guys that when we come back from the bye, I watch closely. It's just kind of like in the Buffalo game at the end when Xavier Rhodes was physically limping and they left him out there, and the Bills finally got him one-on-one with Sammy Watkins and then resulted in the touchdown that lost us the game. You know, Phil was the same way. I mean, he was in his last game against Washington, he was gimpy as can be. And he's always kind of struggled with speed. At least with Phil, clearly you don't know week in and week out what's going to give problems. You don't know if it's the guy slanting underneath him. You don't know if it's speed. You don't know what's going to be his problem. That's frustrating for us as fans. It's frustrating for coaches even more so. You know, Phil struggles with speed sometimes, and I don't think he's physically 100%. And so he'll have this week to heal up. And I think when we come out of the bye, go to Chicago on that surface, which is one of the worst in the NFL, because of all the games they play on it and everything else, they should slow the game down. So I would expect that Phil will come back with a vengeance against Chicago. If we continue to see these things out of Phil, then yeah, I think there's time to have some concern. But I'm not as concerned about Phil right now as I am about maybe some of the rest of the offensive line. I think Bercich filled in pretty well. I think Sullivan's having a very good year, quietly having a very good year. Berger, he doesn't have as much lead in the pencil as Fusco and some of the other guys. And, you know, he gets some of these 330-pound interior defensive tackles. will give up some real estate. But I think the offensive line did much better against Washington. Even though there's still room for improvement, I think they took a pretty good step forward. I think the backs are protecting better. Because you know this, Mike, the running backs is integral to the whole system as everybody else. And, you look back at Buffalo, there are mental errors, there are physical errors. There's all kinds of stuff that result in all, 8, 9 sacks. And they're getting it worked out. I mean, like I said, you went from having a running back like Adrian Peterson, who's been in the league for 9, almost 10 years, and a quarterback who's been in the league for over 10 years, to a rookie running back and a rookie quarterback. And Adrian didn't play a whole lot in third down. And when he was asked to do pass pro, he wasn't all that effective. And it's not because he's not want to, not that he's not physically able to. It's just when you don't know exactly what you're doing and you hesitate, you go from a beast to a speed bump to hurry because you're not quite sure when two guys are running into a gap which one you have. Holy cow, it's a game changer. So I think give Phil his bye and get him healthy, and I think he'll come back. I'm a fan of Phil Lodeholt. You know what you're going to get out of him, but you're right. I mean, he's not who he is, and I really think it's injury. With Khalil again, I have no idea what's going on with him.
I've loved talking with him the entire time that he's been here, since he's been here, and I get a lot out of Phil. He's very down to earth. He's very honest. He speaks from the right from the cuff, and
he's very big.
I can appreciate that. Pardon me? And
he's very big, by the way.
To see a large human being, my gosh! I mean, if you want to talk about something really unbelievable, just an awesome thing to stand next to. I've played for forever, but I don't know if I've ever seen anyone that big in pads. I mean, no.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of in the movie Predator. Kind of reminds me of the thing from outer space. It was just the dreadlocks and everything. It's just, I don't know how much bigger a guy can be there in shoulder pads, but my gosh, he's got to be close to being the biggest guy I've ever seen in pads.
Absolutely.
But I'm with you on Sullivan, and we miss Fusco obviously, and I don't know. Khalil seems so different to me from his first year in the league when I thought he was bigger. I thought he was heavier. I think he tried to get his weight down or try and get really lean, and I don't know if he has as good an anchor as he has to sit down and to punch and to stay out there with somebody else. But that might just be me. But it appears to me that he just looks light. And his first year out of USC, he had a little, he had a little nasty streak. Always got in a brawling mood. Always just sort of cantankerous and he was just kind of a bruiser, and he could sit down and just extend his hands and put them on someone's chest plate and stop them. And I just don't see it anymore. I see him trying to punch harder, but whiffing sometimes and giving up a big play. But he'll get it. He's easily the athlete inside all that. He comes from an athletic family, an NFL family. I mean, I know he has it in there because he showed us all he could do at his rookie year. So it's just a matter of getting on base again and getting on track again. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm glad you brought that up because I look back at a guy like Todd Stussy, who may not have been the brightest bulb in the locker room ever at any time, but I'll tell you this, no one ever questioned how tough that guy was. When I saw him the morning of the San Francisco game, I think it was 97, he had some kind of drink that was not pasteurized or whatever, and he had food poisoning. Woke up, looked like someone just literally beat the living daylights out of him because he broke all these blood vessels in his face from puking. IV all day long, went out there and fired a bullet that night. That kind of toughness, Khalil did show that his rookie year, that nastiness, that down the field kind of banger. Mike Tice would have loved him, but Stussy had that, and my God, I mean, I guess my point is you can't underestimate what that nastiness will do for a big athletic tackle like that. I mean, like I said, Stussy was just, I think, the perfect example of that.
He was. I'm glad you brought that up, too, because I do remember that game extremely well and what happened to him. And it also should be noted that he had his shoulder in a harness, from his shoulder popping out, about 6 weeks previous to that. And you want to talk about tough. I mean, there's no way to measure how tough a guy can be, but when you talk about someone who, and of course I know the entire story, is that he couldn't wait to get back to California because anytime you check into a hotel in California, you can always visit the convenience store down at the shop. and pick up smiley pies, which is what he ate. Something called smiley pie, which he did eat. He ate a smiley pie, and he didn't smile for 2 days after that. And so he got food poisoning off the smiley pie. And he spent the night at Fred Zamberletti's hotel in his room so that Freddie could keep an eye on him, the head trainer at the time. And he threw up all night. And he got up. It was a Monday night game, I believe, or a night game. And so he had to wait all day with it, too. So we went down to the stadium about 4 hours before the game, as we always did. The offensive lineman would always get in the van and go down early. And he was exhausted. And that face, you're right, his face was bloodshot, broken blood vessels in his eyes and his cheeks and his face. And he said, as only Todd could say, someone wake me up. I'm gonna put my shoulder pads on, and he put on all of his gear, and he went into a broom closet, a candlestick, in a janitor's closet, and he laid down and he said, "Come get me before we're supposed to go out." And I got him. I went and I got him. And I mean, this guy got up and he looked dead. He looked dead. And he had Dolman all night. And he played 3.5 perfect quarters. I think he may have given up a sack at the end of the game. But we did win the game. And riding back on the plane, he'd given everything he could have given him. And I've never seen anyone so sick and so miserable on that plane ride back from San Francisco to Minneapolis. But that's tough. And all of that in the shoulder sling. I mean, he had his shoulder in a harness and blocking Chris Dolman like that. Yeah, unbelievable.